Okay, I think I'm live. So what I'm going to do is this tutorial I'm going to show how to make a bow from just a curve. So this would be like a decorative bow that would go on somebody's clothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a Bezier curve. Okay, and what I normally do is I tend to get rid of the default cube. I just hit X to delete that. You can X to delete anything. There we go. And then what I usually do is the default camera and that I usually put into a new collection. So you can always create a new collection anywhere in here, create a new scene collection. I usually just call it lights cameras. But just that way you can like enable and disable those separately from the thing you're trying to create. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do Shift A or add one of these things over here, and we're going to add a Bezier curve. Shift A will do it just fine. And then what we're going to do is, this is in object mode, so we need to be in edit mode. And what we want to do is we want to have essentially a bow, so it's going to have one big old loop here, and then another big old loop here, and then we're gonna sort of fake a little tie off in the center. So because it's actually a little bit difficult to directly tie things off, but we've already kind of got the start of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this guy, hit G to grab him, and I'm just going to drag him over in this direction, and then rotate him about the Z-axis so that he looks a little bit like that. And we've already got like the beginnings of our bow, so I'm going to again rotate this guy about the Z-axis. Okay, he's lying flat-ish. If you hit the keypad 1 through 5, you should be able to see whether or not it's actually flat. It looks decently flat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to extrude it by typing E, and what that means is it's going to create a new segment here. I'm going to type G and Shift Z to move it in a manner that is still constrained to this plane. So if you do G, it'll move all over the place. If you hit GZ, it'll move it only up and down. If you hit G Shift Z, it will stay in that plane. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down. So these are the so this guy is called a control point for this guy right here is called a control point, and these are the tangents, and they basically help you define how the Bezier curve moves. So if we look at this guy, the reason why we have this little hook over here is because this guy's also fairly big. So I'm going to scale him down, and that'll give us a little bit more control over here. Okay, so then I'm going to extrude this guy again and scale by Shift Z, move that over closer to the origin, rotate in Z. Okay, and scale him down, something like that. And then we can, let's see here, what would we do now? So there's a number of things we can do now. What I'm actually going to do is I am going to add a mirror modifier, and that will actually make the bow look more or less complete over here. So one thing that I'm going to do though is I'm going to tweak this a little bit so we kind of get a little flat thing over there. Let's grab this other guy and make sure that he is actually identically at 0. So I'm going to put him at 0 in the X, and then he will continue the bow over here. And okay, we're going to tab out of that, hit tab to go back into edit mode, because you can't apply the things in convert to mesh in order to apply okay. You can't apply modifiers at all in edit mode. but apparently they don't want you to do that in object mode either. So, you know what, I'm just going to smooth this one out. I'm going to rotate around Z. I think I want to have that like that. And if you really want this to be perfectly flat, one thing you can do is you can go scale Y and 0, and that will make sure that it's scaled so that it's perfectly flat there in the center. Yeah, that looks good, at least for now. Okay, so now the question is, how do we actually make this look more like a bow? So a number of things we could do. We could come over to the curve, and not in texture space. Yeah, the geometry. We could, depending on what we want to do with the bow, we could if this were like a shoelace or something like that, we could use this guy here, and then I think we can actually mess with the radius, each individual radius, like that. We're not going to do that today though. Let's shrink that all the way down. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a bevel object, and we're going to use that to control the shape of the bow. So go back out into object mode, and we're going to add a new curve, and that's going to be a circle. Okay, Bezier circle. Bezier circle? I don't think it's a Bezier circle. What do they call it? Curve. Just a circle. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scale this in the Y. So just highlight everything and say scale Y. And I like to do this to make it look a little bit wider at the edges, and then a little bit flatter in the center. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to scale these down in Y. Alright, why did it do that only on one of them? Scale Y. There we go. Just make sure that the control point itself isn't selected. So one way of doing that is type C for circle select, and hold down the left mouse key to grab these guys. Hold down the middle mouse key to deselect the ones in the center. Scale along the Y. That sort of flattens it. And I'm just going to highlight everything and scale it all down. Okay. Now grab our bow again, and then we're going to come over here. So it's under this little panel. This is the curve panel. So we're going to go down to geometry was initially closed. We're going to come down to bevel. We're going to grab the object bevel, and we're going to grab the little eyedropper here, and we're going to eyedropper the little thing there. And now we've got something that sort of resembles a bow. So we can come back over to our regular bow, and we can play around with the radius in order to make these look a little bit nicer. Yeah. I think we've got two things in here, so shrink down the radius here, and you can sort of expand the radius over here. Kind of depends on what you want to do with your bow. I can also tilt these a little bit. Now, one of the problems with doing this like this is that we're essentially both sides are essentially identical. So you know what? Let's try something else. Let's kill the mirror modifier. I'm gonna highlight this. Shift D to duplicate, and then scale X -1. Okay, that didn't work perfectly. So don't do anything here. Right click with your mouse. Right click on the mouse, and then what we're going to do is we're going to set our rotation point to the 3D cursor. Then scale X -1. Boom. There we go. And now what we can do is we should be able to move all of this independently, and I don't know, just make it look a little bit more like it's an actual bow with different sides, something like that. We can sort of tilt those, maybe set the radius independently. Radius down over here. Okay. So that's a simple bow. We can move this part up and maybe this part down. Okay. Like so. And then why don't we add like another curve in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this guy. We're going to rotate him. G Shift C. We're going to move him over here. And then we're going to rotate him 90 degrees. 90 degrees, not minus 90 degrees. I always get those backwards. 90 degrees versus 90 degree minus 90. Shift Z. Move him like that. Rotate him so that he's more flat. Bring him up. Bring him back this way. And what we're going to do is we're essentially just going to fake having a knot right there in the center. Don't be worried about what it's doing there. All we really need to do is take these guys and shrink it down. And do that for the other point as well on this guy, because essentially these are just too big by default. Scale, shrink them down. We're going to do scale X and put them at 0. That's still way too high. We can actually grab each individual one and move it only along Y if we select Y. Okay, scale X 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this about the x-axis, about the median point about the x-axis. There we go. So that's going to give it that little nice curve there. And then on the other side, come here, we're going to do the same. This is so twitchy. Okay. Scale it down so that it's more manageable. Move that only in the Y. And then I think both of these need to have their radius just dropped. Yeah, like that. And then move this down. Move this out in Y, over in X. In fact, let's make sure that it's identically at 0 in the X. And then we can grab both of his control points. And then scale those x0 so that it's flat. That's better. That's much better. I think we already did that with this guy, and let's just move him back over in the Y and then down in the Z. And then this makes it look like we've kind of covered it up with a little knot there, so that there's actually a knot in the bow. Yeah. And then we basically just get to tweak these so that they are all radius down. What I would actually do is shrink both the radius of this and this other one over here so they basically match. In fact, I think we could probably just join those as well. Okay, let's type L to select all of this stuff and hide it. And then let's see here, what do we have? We've got that one, and then this over here comes from this spot. No. Maybe? Nope. That guy. There we go. So these two parts right here are the ones that sort of dead end under here, and then it loops around. It comes around over here on the thing. What we can do is we can actually grab that one and this other one. No, you know, I think we can leave those alone. We can leave those alone. And we can just alt hide the little knot there. But what I would definitely do is just try to make this look like certain parts of the bow are under other certain parts of the bow. And then we can move this guy around like so. Maybe bring that radius up a little bit so that it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, put that guy underneath that, and that makes it look like it's actually like a little knotted surface there. Okay. We can also do something like that. If you really want to, what you can do is you can add more little curves in here. Like you can select this guy and the previous one, and then you can like segments, and you can subdivide. Is that the same part? That's not the same part of the bow. That's why that didn't work. So select that one and the previous part, that part, and this part, and you should be able to do subdivide. You don't want to do switch direction. And so then you could just take this guy and like move him around, rotate it, make it look like it's more of a stringy part. Something along the lines of that. Okay. You just want to make sure that it's all nice and hidden under behind that knot there, and that should work. Now, if you don't like how thin this is, then go back to your Bezier circle, and so the Bezier circle here, object mode, come on, just the circle. If we select that guy, we can scale him out in the Y, and we can sort of fatten our bow out a little bit, make him look a little bit more, give him a little bit more profile. But aside from that, we're essentially done just making a little bow. And of course, the nice thing I like about sort of pinching in the center there is it gives it a little bit of a surface profile. So what else can we do to sort of fix this? Why don't we just take this and sorry, I goofed that part up. And just take this and convert it to a mesh. So we're in edit mode now. GZ. I want to move some of these parts on top of the other parts to make it look. Yeah, there we go. So it looks like there's actually a knot there. So now what we can do is just take this object and we can go convert to a mesh. And then what I always do is I always want to keep the original mesh just so that we don't, you can keep that and go back to it if you want. The other thing I like to do is we can do a new collection up here. I usually just call this intermediate files or intermediate stages. This is a file. And we can just grab these guys and just drop them down over here. Hey, get in there. Bezier curve, and we'll just call this bow. There we go. That's how to make a bow. Now, if you click into edit mode on this guy, there's an awful lot of stuff over here. So if you really want to decimate this a little bit, what you can do is you can just sort of skip every other one of these. So hold down Alt and Shift, skip every other one of them. If this is a little bit too high poly for you. Oh, why did I do that? I said skip every other one. And you'll notice that it'll highlight it all the way throughout the mesh on that side. You can do the same thing over here. Alt Shift, highlight, 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 keep going. Make sure you get the right one. So I'm holding down Shift and Alt at the same time. I really wish there were a way to control how many different lines get created here. when you do the conversion. I haven't really seen how to do that. Seen a place that really controls that. Anyway, you can just do Control X, and boom, you've decimated some of your stuff over here. Made it just a little bit lower poly. Okay. Aside from that, now you can texture it however you want. You can add a new material. You can make it pink if you want. Drag out for roughness. Curious. Select everything and assign. Curious. Why did it do that? Let's check something. Let's check the face orientation. Everything is pointed outwards. Okay. So base color is that. Assign the material. Why is it? Oh, I know why it's doing that. There we go. So the original was actually showing through a little bit. That's why it was partially pink and partially white. Anyway, there you go. You got yourself a bow.